Testing, check, check. 1, 2, 3. Hello, welcome to the Ninja Robot Studio LLC. I'm Aletha Singleton. I've been an UX designer for over 24 years. I haven't done the math again in a while, but over 24 years designing for experiences across desktops, mobile apps, websites, kiosks, like at the airports, literally, and most recently VR, and and multimedia CDs if you remember those from back in the day. But before the internet really took off, or around about the time the internet was starting to take off, they also had multimedia CDs. So I've been doing this for a while, and now I'm focusing on VR, and I'm wondering how my stream's doing because it looks like it might be frozen. Yeah. So the problem here is that I'm trying out the new NVIDIA broadcast AI with yeah. So let's see. Maybe it is working. I'm trying to monitor it on another screen. Okay. So it is working, it's fine. So the reason you see the nice background blur and all that is because I'm trying out the NVIDIA broadcast AI, camera AI, and its features, and it's supposed to like autofocus when I move, but that doesn't seem to be working. Maybe I turned that off when I was doing something else. Yeah, maybe. So anyway, that's why that is. And if the camera does freeze, that's probably my processor is probably getting overworked. But anyway, on Thursdays I play video games and VR experiences and talk through them from a UX designer's perspective, because game development has a very heavy indirect influence on XR development. So it makes sense that we would study game design to better inform and help us to create better quality immersive experiences. And right now I'm studying training sims specifically. That's the background that I come from. That's what I've been creating, is training sims, and more specifically safety training with consequences. So that's my experience, is training sims that actually have been proven to save lives. When people learn the consequences in a safe environment without having to actually experience it, it's much more impactful and can help them, besides just looking at slides on a screen or something. It's much more impactful that way. Training is very impactful in XR because you can learn by doing, not just watching on a screen. So it's more compelling and it's more effective. I have lots of research on that. I need to publish something about that, but I haven't yet. But here we are studying training, and I'm working on a online course, on-demand course. I'm trying to decide. It might be a hybrid, on-demand and some live. Haven't decided yet specifically about creating training, because that's my major niche of where I came from. And so in doing so, I'm studying how other people have solved problems to do this thing called competitive landscaping, where you do your normal user research up front. You go out, you study the target audience, you watch them. For training, specifically, it's very important that you go watch them do whatever it is that they are being trained to do. You watch their training, you talk to their subject matter experts who are the experts in training, their trainers, and you do research in all of these different groups to see how it's currently done so that you can create a better XR experience. And then once you've done all that research and you've figured out your scope and everything, often what I do, not everyone does this, but I do this regardless of whether or not I have permission from the budget and time. I will do this. Don't do as I do as far as budget and time, but I will do what is called competitive landscaping, where I will see how other people have solved this problem, and depending on whether or not you have time or budget will determine how much time you can spend on it. But I will go through and I'll see how have other people solved this problem, and then I will analyze that, and I will look at the gaps, like what's working, what's not working, based on what we've learned from our scope and from our upfront research. How would we change this and apply this, what we're learning, and for our own training, for our own sim that we're doing. And it's not necessarily that you're, like, for example, I'm going through a fire safety training. It's not necessarily that I'm creating a fire safety training. I could be creating any kind of training, scaffolding safety or trench safety or anything, enclosed spaces, because that's a thing. Training, safety training, and it doesn't matter the subject of the training, that you're just looking at how other people have solved this problem of training. How can I take that inspiration and apply it to my training? And there's different types of training. There's skills training, and there's training how to interact with the virtual world. You want to be very clear in your differentiation of those two things, because since the goal of your sim is to train them on a skill or something, you don't want them spending all their time learning how to interact with the environment. That's where good UX comes in, is that you can create an intuitive experience that will let them focus on what it is that they are actually trying to learn. So that's where good UX comes in. If you want to learn the pillars of gaming UX based on the book by Celia Hodent, that is in the chat right now. And also, if you want to check out all the resources of all the things that I have out there, you can check out the link tree, or you can check out Twitch About section, and I've got links in there as well for all the things. And again, I am working on an on-demand or hybrid course about training specifically in my style of teaching, which is probably not what you would get somewhere else that I have seen anyway. But so I have on-demand courses right now on Teachable, but I am looking at moving away from Teachable to a different platform, because Teachable keeps changing their tier pricing and their benefits that are in the tier pricing. The tiers stay the same, but the benefits change. So they're removing benefits from the tier that I'm on and then making you pay more, the higher tier for it, which is hugely more. So they keep removing benefits that are needed. And it's before I start charging people for courses, I want to switch platforms so that I'm not disrupting everyone by doing that in the middle of somebody having paid for this course. So be on the lookout for that. If you are looking at taking any of these courses, I am, because again, this is done in my spare time. The on-demand stuff is done in my spare time. It may take a little bit, but I do need to do that this year. Switch over to a new platform before I start offering the paid courses. Because Teachable keeps, again, removing benefits that's not beneficial. It is for them, I'm sure, but not for those of us who don't have the money for that higher tier. So anyway, I'm working on training sims right now, and since I have to do short streams right now, and I started streaming a little bit earlier because I have a meeting that I need to be there for, that I need to stop my stream earlier than I usually would. so that I could be there for that meeting. And so it's taken me longer, multiple episodes, streams, to finish what I usually would do in just one stream. So here we are. I stopped at 1643. I already played through the sim. We finished it on the first time, the first stream on this fire safety thing. And then I've just been scrubbing the video to do the rose thorn buds because I haven't had time to each stream to finish it. So I stopped at 1643. This is what we've done so far. We've got a few buds and roses and thorns. So rose thorn bud exercise, if you don't know what that is, it is what went well, what was a highlight, what did you like. These are the roses. Thorns, or what didn't go well, what was a low point, what did you not like. And then buds are what opportunities do you see, what would you do differently next time, what questions do you have. So it'll be like follow-ups, what would be the next steps, what would be the follow-ups, like if you have questions, what would those questions be that we need to follow up on, to have a definitive, here's what's working, here's what's not working, here's what we want to do about it, or what we're going to do next. And these are not aligned, which drives me crazy, so I want to align them. There. And yeah, those aren't aligned, are they? That drives me crazy. And now the top's not aligned. Yeah. So this is my OCD. Okay, that's better. Let's play the video now. And see what this menu says. Because I ignored it. It was just so annoying to me, this menu. Wait, there was also a language option. Oh, this is the last one. Okay, never mind. Wrong video. Let me get to the right video. At your own pace. And you're going to want to accompany all of the vocal instruction with written instruction, because it's very possible that you're going to miss something. And I'm getting a really bad jitter on this thing in the head. So to talk about written. Probably did. Let's see. Yes, I did. Voice narration keeps repeating. Yep. I did. Set,
move to the electrical shield. To move, point the controller at the green circle and pull the trigger.
Performance on this one is also not that great, which I don't really understand why, unless they've got too much poly count on their models, or they have like poor lighting or settings or shaders or something. There's always performance issues for whatever reason. This is a trend with actual training that's been released to there's always performance issues, which is possible. The trees have lots of leaves on them and stuff, so maybe there's just I don't know. But anyway, there's a lot of jitter going on. It could also be my computer. I have a 2019, so we'll see.
To move, point the controller at the green circle.
And the voice is super annoying. Yeah, sometimes it will be your computer, because if like you need a graphics card update or something, it will be your computer, but I had just updated my graphics card, so it shouldn't have been that issue. But I think it was probably just, you wouldn't know specifically unless you like have a trained eye in a developer trained eye in what would be causing these issues. More of a trained eye than me to know what the performance issues are. But I do know that there's jitter, and so I could go to a developer or somebody and say, hey, why is the performance so bad here?
And pull the trigger.
But it keeps repeating. I would say don't do that if you're in a classroom setting. Just do a verbal, once, and then have a written sign somewhere repeating what they're saying again, because if they're in a classroom setting, they're going to be distracted by what's going on, a trainer or something And also, if somebody is hearing impaired, they're not going to be able to hear
Move to the electrical shield.
the instructions that the person's saying, and it's also incredibly annoying.
And pull the trigger.
So, yeah, that's what I would say. I'm going to go ahead and move, and they are having me teleport by pointing my trigger. Oh, that voice is so annoying. Did I talk about the wrong button, non-standard button? Yeah, I did. Grab interactions are on the trigger. They've got everything on the trigger, and I can see why they did that, because I've seen that scenario before. Sometimes, let's see, and then let me just make a note to self to talk about why they probably did that. Talk about why they probably did all triggers, because there's a reason they did that, because I've seen it before. And to explain it to you, the controllers in VR aren't standard right now. And if you look at the actual design, and this is was more of an issue a while ago, this game is not that old. Let me see if I have the link to it. I don't think it's that old, or at least it wasn't released that long ago on Steam, at least. Now, it may have been out for a while, but then just not released on Steam. But it was just released last year on Steam. But there are, especially in manufacturing and enterprise situations, a lot of them will have a Vive with the wand controllers, which are completely different design than the Quest and some of the newer VR controllers, like the Knuckles and stuff. My neck's really stiff. So it's a lot harder to... The wand is not designed for your hand. They didn't really take your hand ergonomics in mind when they created it. Whereas, like with the Quest, it is designed to fit your hand pretty well. They took in mind the... I can't raise my right arm very high. We'll do this one. They took in mind the... how your hand naturally closes, right? And so they designed the controller, and all of the new ones that are coming out are more like this, where it's very comfortable in your hand. And some of the older controllers, give me a second. Some of the older controllers are these wand type controllers. Like I have the PlayStation VR original. And it's a wand type controller. This thing is not as designed for comfort. This one's actually better than the Vive wand, but it's still not... It's like holding a handle, which is less comfortable than this, especially if you do the strap around here instead of leaving it around your wrist. Much more comfortable this way. It helps you hold it even if you're not... You don't have to use as much strength to hold it. But the button placement is really comfortable here, and the grip is here. Whereas with the Vive wand is similar to this, only there's a touchpad here, and then there's 2 buttons on the side, and then there's a trigger in the back. And those 2 buttons on the Vive wand are the grip buttons, but they're flush with the side of the controller, just like these are. And so it's harder to press them. It takes more effort to find them and press them. And then if you have to hold them and press them for any kind of extended period of time, it's uncomfortable. So one of the solutions that they'll do on the Vive wand is that they'll use that top touchpad to use as the grip, or they'll use the trigger instead for the grip. And then same with teleport. If it's on the, you probably do it on this one too, but there's a touchpad on the top that they'll either use for teleport. I think it's more often used for teleport than grip. And then the trigger. But in situations where you have a lot of people that are new to VR, they're not used to the controllers, they think that it's just going to be like simpler for them to just use one button and not have to deal with any other buttons. Which is, there's a good argument for that. There's a good argument for that. So that's probably why they did it, is because one, they're probably using the Vive controllers as their main target back when they first created this thing. But there's also this, like, at least until there is a standard controller behavior and it becomes more ubiquitous, this one button was their argument. So let's just make it one button that does everything, which would, that one decision would have then affected why they did the teleportation pads instead of providing free teleport. Because then if you're just using one button, that means that you have to somehow know what they're wanting to do when they click that one button. So that's why they would have made the teleportation pads, that instead of just letting you free teleport, and that would be why they made some of the decisions that they made in the design of the game, is because they were making everything on the one button instead of the different ones. And again, there's pros and cons for why you would do that, because again, it's a more clunky experience now because their teleportation pads were not placed appropriately, as we see later in this video. Did I already write that down? I don't think I did yet. Oh yeah, I know it's right here. Yeah, because it was an issue because I couldn't check the quarters because I was being instructed to check to make sure everyone had evacuated, but I couldn't actually look in the rooms to see in them because the teleportation pads were not placed appropriately so that I could do that. So it kept me from being able to do what they were actually asking me to do. They didn't count it against me, but if you're wanting to train someone in this type of thing and in this safety training, you would make sure that they can do it properly the way they need to do it in real life. You don't want to do anything that in training that would, just because of the limitations of your game, that would be contrary to what they would do in real life if you're teaching them safety, right? You want to teach it properly. So even with that trade-off of the teleportation pads, because they're only using one button, they should have at least put the teleportation pads in the right spots. It's pretty frustrating, the placement of them. So let's say that. It's not necessarily a bud. I'm thinking about colors, what color posted. I guess it can just be green. And then see that affected. I'm going to switch these around so that. Oh, I need it lined. Sorry, my right arm is hurting, so it's going to take me longer to do stuff right now. I'm right-handed. Okay. Yes, just using a mouse is, like, not comfortable right now. So motor function impairments are high on my mind right now because of my own issues with my arm. Injured, but I haven't figured out yet the issue because the scans came back with nothing. So anyway, motor function impairments, you got to think about that whenever you're designing for XR, because like what you think is nothing, like using a mouse shouldn't be anything. It shouldn't take any kind of physical effort. It's just a mouse, right? No strength needed, except there actually is strength needed. And you notice that when you don't have any strength. It's like my arm does not have any strength, my right arm, and it actually hurts. So it hurts whenever you try to use strength, any kind of strength. So just the act of like doing this hurts. So there are people out there with permanent motor function impairments. Mine are hopefully not permanent. Hopefully we can figure out what's wrong and it'll be fixed. But there are people out there with permanent motor function impairments. These things are not just things that people were born with. They're injuries that people get over time. And as you get older, you start having more motor function impairments because our bodies age. So accessibility is a big deal. And when you're designing for VR, which we saw, and I'm getting off topic. I had issues interacting with the environment because of my arm, because of how they designed it. And we will talk about that later. So, teleportation. They has probably used because using trigger for all of the interactions. It needs to be able to differentiate the intended interaction when you're just using one button. So you would have to measure the pros and cons of this. But if you're going to do that, and I'm not saying that's wrong to do that, because they do teach you, and it's pretty simple. The interaction's simple. I do admit that. But the way they executed it is really clunky. Let's see. Best practices for controllers. Yeah, so I did say they probably did it to simplify for people. And then this was probably the pads, teleportation were probably done because they had to simplify and differentiate what's the intended interaction because they decided to go with only one button. So it's a chain reaction of things that affected the environment because they decided to go with one button in their interactions instead of using standard buttons. And I keep going across, so I'm gonna like fix my stuff here. Let me fix my stuff. Or just, I'll do that. The chain of cause effect on the actual design of the sim. For example, teleportation. So let me move this actually over here because chain reaction there. Anyone have questions? You can also feel free to ask questions. Okay. But, so I had stopped this because they were using one button. Did I talk yet about my controllers being offset? I think I did. So where am I right now? 1805. Yeah, I think I did. Here. Okay, this looks like a, I already feel a little weird because these controllers, the way they have them mapped, you can set up an offset in VR on where your controller's placed in your hand and so forth. And already, these are off. I can tell these are off from my actual location of my actual controllers. Because this is something to do with proprioception. Proprioception is your ability to know where each of your body parts are within, I think it's like 8 or 5 centimeters of accuracy. And I can tell you right now that these are not where my controllers are in real life. They're off. They're offset. And also, these I don't know why they would be offset. Why they would have done that. I can't think of any kind of reason that they would have changed that, but it felt off. My hands were in the wrong place. It broke immersion for me, like, immediately. Having these ray casts, these are called ray casts, these little lasers that are coming out are called ray casts. These showing all of the time, regardless of where you're, yeah, there's another comment. Regardless of where you're pointing, is distracting and breaks immersion. So pretty immediately, immersion's already broken because my controllers aren't synced up to where they should be with my actual hands. And you can do this, it's possible. I teach you how to do this in the class that I teach at Circuit Stream, is you can set up the raycast to only show when it's like hovering over something interactable. It's totally doable. You use what's called interaction layers, and you don't even need code to do it if you're using the XR interaction toolkit, which is possible they didn't use the XR interaction toolkit. That when you don't use that, it makes things very difficult. So what I'm talking about here is XR interaction toolkit and Unity. I don't know anything about Unreal. I am going to have to learn soon, but I don't know anything about creating VR for Unreal right now. But I do teach basic Unity prototyping for XR at Circuit Stream, and that's one of the things that we do teach is how to get the raycast to only show when it's interacting with something that is interactable. Otherwise, that raycast showing all the time is super distracting. Totally breaks immersion when you do that. And what I need to double check though, is it only doing it here in the intro, or is it doing it in the sim too? That I don't remember. Let's get back to just keep proprioception in mind. That's what you do. And only offset if there's like a really good reason. Not sure what their reason was. Maybe they had a good reason, but I don't know it. Okay. That I talked about later. Okay, go back to where we were. My voice goes in and out. That's just my life. So apologize if you can't hear me sometimes. It's because my voice goes out. I'm going to go ahead and move, and they are having me teleport by pointing my trigger button. Pick up the power
cable. To pick up an object, hold
that
your
voice is so annoying.
And pull the trigger.
And again, my hands are not where they are in real life, which is throwing me off. I can tell that. Also, that model of the hand is like, who holds their hands like this all the time? Is this a natural position of your hands when you're not using them? It's weird. So that in itself also breaks immersion. So your natural hand position when you're not using it is like this. So make the hand model like this when it's not being used. This is not a natural hand position all the time. So these little details matter. Let's see, where do I want to? Because I do kind of want to say that. Yeah, I'll put it down here with. Do I want to group things right now, like the hands? Teleportation, non-standard buttons. Can't choose handedness. I'm just going to move this up there so that they're together. Because they're kind of a theme with the hand models. And then once I'm done doing this, I didn't scrub any of the other videos. Those were all done by memory. So I didn't scrub those. I mean, I could go back and do that, but how much time am I going to spend on training? Because I could spend forever on it. There has to be a cutoff at some point. You have to know when is enough research enough. I'm spending time on this one because I'm considering this one to be the one that I use as a case study in the course that I'm doing, so I'm spending more time on it. We will see. I may change my mind and use a different one, but right now I'm thinking about using this one. So that's why I'm spending more time on it. Right. So I did want to add. I need to double check that, but I also wanted to add that the hand shape's also weird. The resting hand position. It's not a natural position. They're too straight. Details. Details matter when at the immersion. Convincing someone there's someone else. That they're. Did I say someone or somewhere? Convincing someone that they are somewhere else and that that world is real and believable. Details matter. So pay attention to those details. not straight line would have annoyed me. I do have a tendency towards OCD. So hands not animated properly for all the interactions. I just need to double check that. Okay. That my hands are not where they are in real life. So that is also throwing me off and breaking my immersion, not to mention the lasers coming out of my hands. Is also throwing me off.
Insert the plug into the socket. To release or set an object in your hand, open the electrical panel door. Put your hand near the object to interact with it and pull the trigger.
Yeah, and since it's using my hands, there's no need for a laser to be showing right now. And I can understand why they want to use the trigger for everything, but it's usually best to use whatever the standard buttons are for the device that you're using. If your standard button for grabbing something is the grip button, use the grip button, because that's going to help people from device to device, from experience to experience on the same device.
Put your hand near the object to interact.
That voice is so annoying.
Pull the trigger.
I'm not sure if you can hear it, but they keep repeating the same instruction over and over again. If it had been written on the wall, they wouldn't have to repeat it. Now I'm wondering, should I move Raycast up there? This all has to do with controllers. All that has to do with controllers. So I'm going to put it all together. Oops. Music's not playing. Is the joy of using Post-its instead of writing everything down as notes in long sentences, because that's something that people tend to do in research and research synthesis. Is you start immediately with your thesis, right? Your dissertation is like, because you're writing long sentences and all these explanations and everything, where all you really need to do is just use the reason I use Post-its is, one, because you can rearrange them and synthesize and like associate things in groupings and stuff and see patterns better that way. But you also, using these Post-its also keeps your notes really short and concise, so that you could reuse this however you need it. So like, I could make all kinds of things from this one Miro board. I could make a report talking about my findings from this one thing. I could create a video about it. I could create an online course about it, all from this one thing. And I can quickly see, these are the things that work, these are the things that don't work, this is what we do about it, in short, concise things. And then I use my brain to fill in the gaps whenever I'm creating whatever it is I want to create. If you just, the common method of just writing out a lot of notes on paper or Word or whatever, is that then whenever you go in to create whatever it is you need to create, a report, an infographic, whatever, you have to dig through all those notes and read and try to find the points. And you can do that, but that takes more time. than just doing post-its in the first place. And maybe someday I can show you how that's done. I'm not a I didn't go to school for research. I didn't study specifically research in school. I actually studied design. Graphic design is my degree, but all of my work experience, all my experience is UX. And as a part of that, I also had to do research. So I learned on the job research, and I learned from researchers these methods. So, and as you grow in your career, you will learn other things besides just what you went to school for, to like gain additional skill sets. So when you first start off, it's useful to know all these things, but it's okay to not know all these things. It's kind of unrealistic for jobs to expect you to know all of these things when you're entry level. Because I didn't know all these things when I was entry level. I knew one thing well, and then I learned on the job everything else. And one of those things was research. And this method of research synthesis called coding, where you will go and you will color code your notes to pull out these things that I'm doing with post-its right now. There are pros and cons for doing it that way. Like if you're out in the field and you're doing research, you want to take notes while you're there, and that's just going to mostly be freeform notes as things happen, and then you have to go back and synthesize that, and that can take time. And then in that way, you would use this method of coding to like color code the notes to, but I can show that at some point, but it's not going to be, it might not be like how a professional researcher would show you how to do it, but it's how I do it, and it works. So it does work. So anyway, maybe one day I will show that. Distance settings on controller interactions are strange, so you have to move your hand closer, and then it's also distracting. So distracting having lasers shooting out of hands all the time. Okay. But the grip button is what you would want to use, but I'm having to use the trigger button, which is throwing me off, as well as this jitter that's happening inside the headset.
Press the button. To do this, put your hand close to it and pull the trigger.
And it's telling me to press. So I'm thinking you have to pull the trigger to push a physical button. And again, so I'll just add it to this one. I'll just add it to this one because it's the same argument. Pressing buttons requires a trigger. That will be blue. Even my like methods for doing rose thorn bud are a little bit different than what you would see if you looked up rose thorn bud, because the colors are different. And the reason the colors are different is because they use red for roses and green for thorns. But in my experience as a UX designer who works on teams and does research with teams, standard that I've seen is green is like good things that happen, and red or pink is pain points, the bad things that happen. And there's a train coming. So I don't know if that's going to honk right next to my house or not. I'm betting it will. Apologize for that. But that's the reason that I changed the colors, is because it was messing up my brain because I already had a mental model in place for what red and green mean. They did wait until they went by. Thank you. So that's why I'm using different colors than what you would see if you looked up on the internet rose thorn bud right now. So I just switched to yellow roses because I'm from Texas and it's blue's kind of like green. But anyway, I guess there are some red thorns out there, but it was messing up my brain. So if you look this up online, you would see different color coding. That was pressing the buttons requires the trigger. So again, chain reaction of cause effect. Use standard button interactions. And then also you'll need to like measure the pros and cons of like direct interactions in your experience, because now I have, when I've done usability testing on when I've done usability testing on my own research, that people do sometimes still press the trigger. Even if they don't need to, when they're pressing a button. Even if we want to do better English, even if not needed. Because they feel they're supposed to. So, but it was not the majority. So if it were me, I would still, it depends, because in the prototype that I teach you how to create on in our class at Circuit Stream, I do use a raycast to press a physical button, but that's because of distance, as well as it's a rapid prototyping, whereas this is a finished product that has been released. So it should be more polished than a rapid prototype. I should probably go add that physical touch to that prototype. Practice what I preach. Press the button to do it. Put my hand near the button and pull the trigger. I'm doing everything left-handed because my right arm is injured and I can't move it very well. Everything I'm having to do is left-handed. But there was no option for me to change handedness at the beginning. And that's going to be kind of significant if there's anything in one of my hands in the future, which is a common thing in training.
Press the button.
And I also called it because they did have something in my hand later. Hey, Phantom. So yeah, the speaker, so you can hear it. Okay, yeah, it's very annoying. Okay, so this is a free trial. And yeah, I have not paid for this. I'm glad I have not paid for this. These lasers, these raycasts are also annoying, and again, my hands are offset. They're not where they actually are in real life. They've offset them for some reason, which is throwing my hands off too. They've also offset the raycast. So I'm gonna go ahead and use the free trial. I don't know. I'm not positive which one I'm supposed to hit start on. I will just.
Welcome to VR Simulator Fire Safety.
And again, the panel following me around is annoying. Did I talk about that? Let's see. Around, yep. I'm going to learn.
Find an escape plan and study it. Remember the shortest path indicated in the plan from the workplace to the escape door, as well as the location of manual call points to raise an alarm and the location of handfire extinguishers. To do this, hover the pointer to the evacuation plan and pull the trigger, then hover the pointer over the required answer option in the context menu and pull the trigger.
I can't rotate myself in. And that was a lot of words. That was an awful lot of words. Did I say that? Yeah, I did. This is kind of a separate pain point. But same. But avoid annoying your students. The VR experience, there's no snap rotation or anything, so I'm to physically rotate, which is fine, but oh, there was no snap rotation? Is annoying. Okay, so there's, I'll add that. But that might be one of the reasons that they did that was because of all this one button things. So I'm going to put it here. It's another accessibility thing. It's another accessibility thing. They're seated. If they're in a wheelchair, they're going to need that. And that might be another thing I need to keep together. Because then there was also that issue of me not being able to reach. So I had to switch hands. So can I hear music? Can I arrange these so accessibility stuff is together, but voice narration also has to do with accessibility. Some of this stuff has to do with accessibility as well, like hearing impaired. They need that. So I'm gonna have to find some other way of like maybe I could use a sticker. I don't know. Let me look at stickers. It's just not responding right now. Your emojis shouldn't break your experience. But I'm about to have to stop anyway because I have a meeting at the top of the hour. But I can't make a note of where I stopped if it's freezing just because I opened up emojis. Okay, thank you. Okay. What would be a good accessibility image? I don't want to be stupid about it. I use a star. I like stars. Do they have the international accessibility thingy? Yeah, they do. Do they have that hearing impairment symbol? I think there's a hearing impairment symbol too. Not gonna freeze it too? I just typed in a search. That's it. Fine. I'm tired of messing with this because it keeps freezing everything. Okay, where did I say that? I know I set it up here somewhere. And so this would go for hearing impaired or cognitive impairment. So but then I need to like create some content about around accessibility and why you care, why you need to care. Because it doesn't, designing for accessibility does not just benefit people with accessibility needs. It benefits everyone, especially if you have temporary impairments, injuries, you've just had surgery, you're in a like cognitive impairment, for example, if you're in a noisy environment or you're super stressed out, like I don't know, when there's a fire. You would be super stressed out. And when you're super stressed out, you are often, depending on you, cognitively impaired in that moment. So designing for accessibility is beneficial in that kind of situation. So we need to think about that. I need to create some content around accessibility. And I need to look into what people are doing in the industry right now. I haven't been doing a good job of following up on what people are doing in XR specifically for accessibility. I know there are a lot of benefits that can come out of these things for people with various impairments and issues, but I haven't looked at what the technology is doing to attempt to make things better for them. I need to do that. So there is a meeting that I'm about to have to go to, so I'm gonna have to end my stream now. Let's see, where did I stop? 21, 25. Hopefully this has been educational for you. And you get a little look into my brain around how I synthesize and think about this stuff. Because like if you can't, like here, what I'm doing, if you can't physically group things together because they fall into multiple categories, you could come back and do some kind of sticker or something to like still tie them together as a related theme that is a different theme, because there's gonna often be multiple themes going on that you would want to tie together. So that's another way of doing that. We stopped at 21, 25, and we'll just pick that up next time, because I've got to go to this meeting. And thanks for hanging out, and I will see y'all next week. Have a good rest of your day and a good rest of your week. I'll see you next time. Thanks for hanging out.